Good morning all, this is Brian Whitten and ET Art. How are you all? Time for another video today and the content of which will be discussing the folding galaxy as we discussed in part 3 of Confirmation, the folding galaxy. I will call this one Confirmation-Part3, the folding galaxy part 2 for a reason. We will get to that very shortly, but before going on I did want to discuss a few things that I thought important enough at this stage to mention. When I showed you last week that I have two channels. There is this channel here, which is ET Art by B. Whitten. It's a channel I created because of the discovery of images on the river rocks and my understanding of what the pyramids were here for, the real purpose of them. It wasn't the discovery, it was actual fact a path given to me, or a track I had to follow, and they were not discoveries, they were just exposing the secrets of things that we get held or withheld from us. All of us do. Certainly not all. The people that are in the club that know are certainly in a club that is very, very big and very, very powerful in respect the things that happen on our globe, and this transcends across all continents and every country. There are very, very few countries that are not being manipulated one way or another. So I just wanted to have you understand, which is why I wanted to have a little bit of a chat with you in the first instance here, of why these two channels exist. If I then show you this channel, this is my personal channel. This is where you will find this video that we're making now. It will be on this channel here. But this channel here I started a long ago. It was one that I put up that was purely to do with corruption in the family court, all sorts of things to do like that, chemtrails, global warming and all that sort of stuff. It was long before the rocks and the pyramids and all that sort of thing, right? But I had gotten to a point in my life where I found out something. I had to sit with my two boys. They were young men, they were not boys anymore, and I had risked my life quite some time trying to, expose the corruption in the family court, the legal sector, the police force and so on. It was worthwhile, and I did so because people come after me, and it was the children in respect of family court are supposed to be protected, and really my experience was that was the least concern of all the people running the thing, so that was why I chose to do as I did. But there did come a time where I had to sit with my two boys, and like I said, they were young men at the time, and say, listen, if I kick off again here, we're going to upset some people. And they're pretty deadly people. They start wars and kill millions of people, so if we were putting our lives on the line, there was no doubt, and I had to discuss that with my two lads, and we all agreed that it was worthwhile to try and find my mother's murderer. Their Nana, she was very loved by both of them, so they came to the same conclusion that it was worthwhile. Right, so we all stepped out here, it wasn't just me. But that's why this channel was created. It was all to do with all of that sort of thing. Anyway, so what happens, and I did explain it very quickly now, I did get to a point of I think I spent a decade and a half trying, from the time I kicked off on my own to later on with the two lads as well, and it was a fruitless exercise. It got nowhere because the corruption is just so bad. The irony is I'm putting my work here. I moved all my work to do with the pyramids and rocks away from this channel. I gave up. I said, look to the heavens. I said, I've had enough of this. I've had a decade and a half and I've got nowhere. I need a new job, and I've explained that before. Where the words come from, I don't know. It said, get Wilson's rock. I'll insert a picture of it here for you. Within about, 3 or 4 minutes of looking at that, having held it in my hand many times and not understood what it meant, within 3 or 4 minutes of saying I need a new job, I understood what the lines were on that rock and why they were there, and then I went on my journey of discovery, and that was probably well over 4 years ago now. It was just prior my 60th birthday. I'm now 64. So it was just prior my 60th birthday, so we've just passed our 4th year, and if it was a 4-year apprenticeship, I finished a course, which means I would expect, so I still believe it's this year. So anyway, listen, I just wanted you to be aware that that's why these two channels existed. I actually did ask for a new job. That's why there are no other videos other than these on this channel. It's not because they don't exist anymore. I just took them out of the picture because my job was this, and their job was going to take care of everything else that was on this page, and everybody it had to do with, right? And I'm talking from the Queen of England all the way down to whoever. So that's why these channels exist. Now I just want to have a chat with you about a few other things. Now, prior to moving on to the further discussion that I wanted to have with you, I want you to be aware that if you look down this list of videos that's on my E.T. Art by B. Whitman channel, this is the one I can no longer upload to, that there are multiple videos in here related to the placement of nuclear bombs. Okay, there's images all over these river rocks about the distribution of nuclear bombs. These started, to the best of my knowledge, not long after I had worked out quite a lot of the story. In other words, where we were told the Caucasian races were amongst those that couldn't stay on Earth once the axis of Earth is straight, like so. And these all exist down here. They told about Donald Trump's involvement and so on. And I do realise that I wanted you to be aware that there's a whole series of them in here. Mr. Morrison knowing about it, Peter Dutton knowing about it, the movement of nuclear bombs. It's all written on the rocks. That's where the story is being found. I just want you to be aware that there is a whole series of videos, and they have more recently come back up here towards the top here because of images like this, where we're talking about the movement of nuclear bombs to the diving championships and to Sri Lanka in the cricket, which was only this year in July. You know, it's Sydney, there's ones about Sydney, nuclear bombs being placed there at Easter. The then Prince Charles knowing about it, the King of Dork he is now. I shouldn't say that probably, but anyway, I don't like the guy, I've never liked him. I've never really been that keen on royalty, to be honest, so, you know, I'm not anti-royal, I'm just anti-bad. If they were royals and they were good, it'd probably be a different situation. We wouldn't know everything that's on this channel, it would have been in our history books. But anyway, I just want you to be aware of that before I go on. So these images you see now are just microscopic images taken from the river rocks. Some of them will deal with the virus, the vaccines. Some of them will deal with, you know, the nuclear bomb placements and explosions and all sorts of things like that. And while I have a chat with you, I just wanted to talk to you about certain things that have happened over the, well, couple of decades, I guess. Not about me personally, but worldwide. We had the event of 9/11, which led about the invasion of two countries, one of which was Afghanistan. Afghanistan did have resources in respect to uranium. The thing is that with the invasion of both Iraq and Afghanistan, there were private enterprises working within that campaign. I won't mention the name of these enterprises, but what I will do, and I'll say it's concerning, is, and I've put this up on social media only a couple of weeks back, that I have a concern when I know that the uranium when you purchase it, you have to, you know, there are rules and regulations that's to do with the, you know, nuclear treaties signed between all of the nations of the world. But if you go into a campaign of war, you steal it. You do not have to say what I'm going to do with it. And this is where the uranium come for these nuclear bombs. It was actually, that's why that's the case. One of my concerns is that one of these private enterprises we talk of has financial investments in CERN, which, if you realise that we've discussed all this point, particle accelerator. I think I said it's a joint venture between France and Switzerland. It's pretty much on the French border or the Switzerland border there somewhere in Europe. It's on the same line of longitude, and I've discussed in a video as the Norway shipping tunnel, and we've also discussed the placement of nuclear bombs in the Norway shipping channel, and that it's a very concerning fact when you've got the same private enterprise now buying a larger percentage of CERN. This very same mob that were involved in Afghanistan. There are many things going on in the world at the moment, and you may not believe what I'm telling you, but it is written on the river rocks that there are people on Earth that have looked into what I've been saying is written on them. The rocks tell us what happened. So there's one down here where I talk about on my content here on ET where I talk about the exchange of nuclear weapons in the Great Australian Bight. These were weapons that were supplied by the US. They were supplied to both the UK and the Australian military. We also know, and you know, it's been on mainstream media of late, about the FBI's entry into Donald Trump's premises looking for documents related to nuclear weapons and the supply of nuclear weapons to foreign nations. That is exactly what was on mainstream media. I just want you to be aware of that. We have a situation in my country here where I've written directly to the Australian Federal Police. I had concerns over the placement or the duties that were in the hands of the then Minister for our then Minister for Defence, Peter Dutton, a Queensland politician or federal politician, who's crying his eyes out at the moment. We've had an unfortunate situation where some police have been killed over here, and he was a former Queensland police officer. It's a very sad thing, yes, but in reality the man has been deliberately, well, said to be involved in the distribution of these nuclear bombs. There was a boat, a US warship that came in after the floods this year, which I think was just prior Easter, and the rocks have on them that these were supplied through the US ship that came here. They were shipped down the F3. Now that's what a highway that used to be called between Sydney and Brisbane. It's actually called the M1 these days, but they had to differentiate where the bombs came from. In other words, where the big ones came from, where the small ones came from, and so on. I had a concern because that guy was, prior to being the Minister for Defence, was Minister for Immigration. Those of you who may not know, there is a story that broke in London well, it's probably, I guess it may have been over a decade ago now, quite possibly, because, you know, the time does fly when you're getting distracted with all these things. But in reality, what actually happened was that these children had come out and started talking about what had transpired in their primary school. We're talking about the Hampstead children's case, okay? There are two schools. There is a Hampstead Primary and Christchurch Grammar, which was a more senior school. What was going on in those schools would appear to have been wholesale rape of children. This is in a group environment. And at Christchurch Grammar, once again, it was worse again. It was students and teachers and the primary school kids that were brought there, but there was also sacrificial murder of children in front of all these kids. This was a situation of grave concern because I am of the opinion, and I was told, I guess that's part of my job here, part of doing all this was to get given, you know, information from, I guess, the guys that gave me the job. You know, do this, Brian, we'll take care of that, but we're going to let you know about other things. Some of these were personal things. They had to do with family. So, you know, it was a bit hard to take, but, you know, it had to be done. But the things that are also there were to do with Peter Dutton. I was told in this information, I didn't know how good it was, that there were people moved into our country whilst he was Minister for Immigration who had come from those schools. In other words, teachers. People that had been working in there in England in those schools, brought up in the Hampstead children's case, had been moved into our country while Peter Dutton was the Minister for Immigration. The concern I had, and I mentioned to the Australian Federal Police in a document only this year, was that it was actually Peter Dutton who's got a daycare centre running up there and gets funding from Australian taxpayers to run a daycare centre in Brisbane. This is the man who's bringing the teachers over who were involved in the sexual abuse of these children and sacrifice of children. I had some very big concerns. I have very big concerns, like I said, also with this private ownership of this business that ran in individual, as an entity in the Afghanistan invasion, acquiring the nuclear bombs. I'm concerned that we also have an Australian Prime Minister here, that when this vaccine and rollout first came about, they were talking in our country of the over 60s being those that would be receiving the vaccine. I would like to know why he ordered 75 million for a country of 25 million, when in actual fact this is very, very early on, when the talk was only to be that 50 and up, yet he ordered 75 million. I am of the opinion that was another way that the nuclear weapons were distributed into foreign lands. In other words, that they suitcase-sized nuclear bombs were placed inside the pallets that distributed the vaccines. So in other words, we'll put a layer on the bottom of the vaccines, we'll put 2 or 3 nuclear weapons there, when they will surround the outside of them and across the top, and then wrap them in plastic and ship them into countries, because I am certain that that is what has happened. They've actually used the distribution of those nuclear weapons, the involvement of military, to pack and unpack and distribute. I'd like to know who's doing all those jobs. I'd like to know whether those vaccines and the pallet loads of them that came to each country, whether they went through the same scrutiny as anything else that had been imported to any, as a foreign import. Did our border security x-ray these pallets? Were they checked properly? And all such things. And when I say that, I realise that there are people here doing some very, very, very despicable things, and they're trying to get rid of the people on the planet here that are the prize. In other words, the good ones, the ones that didn't go down the path and these people have tried to lay for us, So anyway, listen, that's all I wanted to say. I'll get on with the video now. I come back to the CERN logo before I go on with my new discussion today, and say to you that I did put this in part 2 and part 3 and mention that what we're seeing here is a reference to 1/4 of the galaxy being the other side of the black hole at the centre of our galaxy. 3/4 of it is this side. We exist, displayed with CERN in this front circle, on the side of the galaxy that has 3/4 of it this side and 1/4 the other side. That the CERN logo is telling us exactly about these things, and that the very process at CERN is to talk about neutrinos and these unknown particles, and I would imagine they're trying to manipulate them one way or another. I also said to you that this small line heading in the opposite direction here is representative, that they seem to think that the neutrinos within this managed portion of the galaxy, this star array that we've been talking about till this point, I will insert a picture here for you, that the red dwarf stars, of which there are 3, cycle very quickly, almost at light speed, around all the stars that you see within that star array. This process is to do more than one thing. As the messages are, that process is more than one reason as well. What I disagree with here is that the fact we are seeing this, if we look back at our CERN logo, and these are reflective of the one side of the galaxy cycling in a different direction than the other side of the galaxy on the other side of the black hole, which I also believe is wrong. And I also inserted this image in my last video. And I inserted some text over it without an explanation, but I thought, well, I'll put that there today. I'll go through an explanation. I said that this had an earthly message for the Asian races. I say that because it's not that difficult to see that this person's face is, and she's an Asian woman. there is a situation where, when the Earth is moved back in from beyond Mars, dependent upon where that starts the cycle of a 4,000 year cycle, if the Earth is going in the wrong direction in the first place for the Asian people to live, they don't, what's the point of starting the cycle? I'll insert this picture here of Göbekli Tepe. When you look at these handbags are directly related to the process of movement of Earth in from, or this movement in from beyond Mars. The planet is pushed out beyond Mars. I'm going to explain that as we go a little bit later, but I just wanted you to be aware of this in its dual meanings. Just like the light when you move around on a rock, changing the story. Many of the artifacts are the very same thing. They don't just mean one thing. So in this instance, from an earthly perspective, it's talking about the Asian race's inability to breed in a given direction when the sun is going, when the planet is going around the sun in a given direction. They cannot breed. So if they're going clockwise, they're a no-go. They cannot go clockwise on a straight standing Earth going around the sun when the Earth is in a clockwise orbit. And anti-clockwise, they can. So we see the Asian people and the Asian races will stay on Earth. These are good ones anyway. But from a galactic perspective, we're talking about what is behind this disc right there on the side of her head, and what's behind this disc right there on the side of her head. It's an ear, a black hole right here. We've all got both. It's right here, it's a black hole. And what they're saying here with the galactic perspective is exactly that. They're saying that this and this are cycling in the same direction. She's only looking one direction. If it cycled both, she'd have a face on the other side, just like we see in other artifacts. This is what this is saying. It's saying that the galaxy, and we've already gone through the processes in my last video of explaining how we are told the galaxy moves, and I'll get back to that. But I just wanted to quickly run through an explanation of why I believe that that's telling us the galaxy on both sides of the black hole are spiraling in the same direction. Now I've added a line here and discussed this also as being telling us that the galaxy didn't absorb itself to the black hole by moving matter in this fashion. In other words, it didn't fold like this, which was my wrong diagram, like this here, where it's pulling back the matter into the hole this way. That it didn't do this, it folded over, which is why I wanted to show you that the schist disc, an Egyptian artifact, this one here, is folded like this. So in other words, the stars and the matter didn't go pull back in from the centre, but they fold over like that. I wanted you to understand what we're seeing here, because I want to go back to the schist disc this way. Before I discuss the top version, I want to show you something else. And like I said, I don't believe for a minute when I've told you that this represents the cycle of the moon. Is it wrong? That's going to be correct. But what it also shows us is, I believe, something else very important. Before I go on to the important fact, I will say to you that if we look at this as being representative of Earth going around Sun, we're talking about a year, and we're talking about an orbit, and we're talking about a period of time that people can breed, those that are left on Earth, in these months here. So these might be periods of time where the moon is closest, like this, 3 times a year. They can breed. That is represented also on this. This image here is taken, to be honest with you, I don't know where the temple is, or whether it's probably been carted away somewhere sitting in a British museum to make sure people don't understand its meaning. This is an actual fact. You see this as giants and humans. This is not what this is about here. This is about population growth. I told you that there's 3 times a year. 1, 2, 3. they're the same height here, 3 times the size of this little fella here, because they're talking about direction. Note that these 3 are going this way. They're looking right. They're talking about an anti-clockwise rotation around the sun. This bloke here is going that way. He's only a third the height because they're saying this guy here, when he's going that way, he's only getting 1 chance a year to breed, not 3. And that's why this is the way it is. This guy here hunched over and leaning forward with his head towards the date palm is telling us that the next year in this sequence of the ones going this way, in other words anti-clockwise around the sun, that this guy here leaning forward is telling you, well, the situation is that the next time that the year comes past, I'm just a little bit further this way. We have the same sphere of the semicircle here with the hands here, meaning 2 things as well. Because in this direction it's saying, well, there, just like I did in a half year I'm getting 2 goes, just like we see within the schist disc here. The schist disc is saying within a half year I'm getting 2 goes. Were come and gone, with periods of time where conception could have taken place, has come and gone, with the 3rd one right in the middle. Looks like, I mean, if you drew a line down like that, and a line like that, and a line like that, what do you see? The Mercedes Benz sign. I'll come back to that one in a minute. But going back to our drawing here, that's why we're seeing this guy's head move further forward. It's an 11.5 month year we're going into, the people on Earth, with the straight axis going anti-clockwise around the sun, void of the white man, void of the North and South American Indians. The people left on Earth will have a situation where the 2nd year comes around. It's a little further this way, so they're picking up the next lot of star signs. That's what's happening here. I just wanted you to be aware that that is, once again, another one of those artifacts or carvings or reliefs. That is in actual fact an instruction on childbirth. In other words, this guy here going that way is only getting 1 chance a year, and I'm going to show you how we're showing that in the following plates. Now I've shown you this one before as well, and this is a plate that refers to the cycle that's coming up now, this 3 times a year meeting with the moon at its closest. I'm talking about the Middle Eastern people here, and I've said to you that the message reads that the Asian people breed when the moon is furthest away from Earth, not the same way. This comes about by the fact we all evolved in a binary, multi-planet binary star system. That is the situation, which is why these differences exist between the races of people that are on Earth. This one here reflects the movement of the moon in and out, just as I've shown you. It gets driven in one respect by the cycle of a spinning Mercury, in another respect by the cycle of a spinning Venus. And that is what drives the moon in and out like this, towards the Earth and back away, and towards Earth and back away. That cycle is picking up, as I said, 3 every year with an increment, so that the next year, the star signs being 11.5 months, picks up the other star signs that missed, or another 3. The process, taking 3, it's going to take 4 years before all the star signs are, born. Then when we come back to this plate, which has got the motion of the moon left from it, I would expect what we're seeing here is the moon's position is here. In other words, if it was to, Earth was to pass by the sun on the equator, you would see a solar eclipse where the moon is this big, close enough to breed for the Middle Eastern people, or the people, which why do I say Middle Eastern and Asian? There are variations of people here, so going to affect different people in different ways. But I would expect in this instance we've got a straight standing globe like so, going around the sun in a clockwise direction, as it was 6,000 years ago prior to the tilting of the axis and the movement and change of the plane of rotation 180 degrees like so. But it was actually standing straight, going around clockwise. The moon was stationary, I believe, not just in a position in towards the sun and back, but also stationary in that it didn't orbit. the sun. It was probably just splayed over the Earth, then passing once a year. So I would think that's actually what's happening here, and that I would expect that what we're seeing as the protection of the equator here is done by Venus. Because we already know from the last plate I just showed you that the moon can be as far in as Venus and be driven back by Mercury. Is telling us that that is sufficient deflection of these fields to stop these tsunamis being lifted. You know, these big tsunamis that be lifted by this magnetic field of the sun, very strong, lifting the oceans to a point that it would create tsunamis all over the globe. That is what the purpose of that is. So I think they're telling us there that it quite possibly Venus is the planet that is in cycle, in sync with Earth, to protect it during this process, but the path of Earth is only passing this, a stationary moon, once within the 11-month period, because in the direction that way we are told is an 11-month year. The speed would be a 32-hour day, but for the fact that more mass is placed on the equator, more land mass and mountainous areas on the equator makes the Earth spin quicker than it would if it was like it is at this present point in time. So that's another lesson we've had till this point. Now, observing the image on the screen that you see, this is an absolutely amazing image. I will just give you a few seconds to look at it, and then come back to our TV if you would, and realise that when we look at this image, it's showing us the location of people in the galaxy. So in other words, where these peoples existed, one of which was the white man being the most right hand side, the Neanderthal in the middle here, sticking his tongue out, and these alien beings here. I'm going to zoom in on some of this picture here, so we want to observe what it is we're seeing. On this side here, where we see the male alien with the male sign on his head, I'll insert another picture here for you so you can see that more clearly as well. Down the bottom here we're seeing the black hole that they are facing. So in other words, they're living in the galaxy and this fold starts to happen. I'll go back to the schist plate and explain to you quite a few more things. We have the Neanderthal here, halfway in the development of the galaxy. Here we see planetary bodies moving into the black hole. It's actually quite easy to see when you zoom in here a bit. You get little stars and planets and red dwarfs and all sorts of bodies here going into this black hole, and this is in front of them. So this is their issue. They have to deal with this one here, and this is where they're taking on the human DNA. This woman here, her features are here, but when they're held down, she's got this human-looking face here, but more her alien, real face up here. They're telling us that they had to take the DNA of humans on, and as well as the Neanderthal, as we have had. I want to go back this way a little bit further. On this side of the rock you see the white man here, black man is in here. He's not always real clear, but he is here. And there's another creature here, looks like a red man and a yellow man. Right? So in other words, they're saying all the humans are here. But what do we see here? When this is not a black man and it's not real clear, it is in actual fact another black hole. And right here we see the face of a dinosaur, and here a dinosaur. So what they're actually telling us here, with these here, the dinosaurs are coming out of this black hole here. Not this one here, this is the one they want to go into. I just want you to be aware of what we're seeing here. That this black hole here, we are on the other side of it. I just want you to be aware that that is what this rock seems to indicate to me, without doubt, that we are seeing planetary bodies in here as well, moving this way. The dinosaur here, there's a dinosaur here with his cleft head again. There's another dinosaur here. So we're seeing them tell us how long it took them to evolve to be this being here. That's actually what we're being told in this rock. It's amazing. I will show you that this rock that was on, I actually picked up at the men's shed when I was up there one day. It's this big. I'll show you a photo of it. Then we'll get back to the schist disk and understand really what its purpose is. I just want you to be aware that I'm of the opinion I made another mistake. It was rather a large one. And that was that the 33 minutes and 48 minutes we're showing here was a time reflective of the galaxy's growth this side of the black hole. In other words, out of that much of the galaxy that could be here, this much is here. Right, so we're on the building part. The galaxy this side is still building with a quarter left the other side, as we've already discussed. But this is not 33 million years, it's 3.3 billion years. That's what it is, and this is 4.8 billion years. It's sometimes hard to fathom those lengths of time, but I am certain that is right, and I will show you why first. To do that, I'll come back here to the Utah pillar, which is located here, which marked this structure. It's a mountain. It's a hominid, any dog. It's saying to you that this is not the growth of humans. This is the evolution they know of themselves, the reptilians, the ones on the last rock. They're saying that they have evolved from a creature that could domesticate another animal to the point down here in Roswell where the UFO was, that period of time was roughly 670 million years. And we know it's millions because at the other end up here we're getting a reflection of the amount of people taken, our 11.1% of the world's population, one group of people to these two stars. They're going to be going to these two, the other guys to these two stars, further back, further down. So what we're looking at is this is being reflected here at 876 kilometres is 876 million people, which was the 11.1% of the world population of 7.9. So we know this is millions of years here because it's reflective of that. Okay, so we're saying that between the period of time that it took for them to domesticate another animal to the point they're flying in UFOs is some 670 million years of their evolutionary path, which is nothing. It's just a pinch of it, but that is why it's like that, and that is why I say, I will show you now the schist disk and explain to you why I believe those measurements of 33 and 48 in the pyramid are in actual fact 3.3 billion years and 4.8 billion years as a growth of the galaxy. Now, understanding what we've just learned, we've learned that the population growth of the Earth, when it's standing straight, going clockwise around the Sun, you have one chance a year. Standing straight like this, going anti-clockwise around the Sun, is going to produce 3 chances a year. Are we not seeing here an explanation that something is increasing by 3-fold? So our 360 degrees we've got round here, we've divided by 3. We don't divide it by 6 because there's not 6 of these. There's 3 of these and there's 3 of these. So we divide it by 3. If we divide 360 degrees by 3, we get 120 degrees. We leave our 0 off. And the 12 is the number they want us to know. And the 12 is therefore equal here. And these are 12 billion years. And if we ponder that the reptilians are now facing the curling back of the galaxy, in other words the movement in. These are movements in here and movements back displayed in the 12 billion years. We know that they have just told us by the placement of the Utah pillar and the structure above it and the UFO that is taking place in less than 1 billion years. In here, it's 700 million years or thereabouts. And the dinosaurs are coming out of the black hole, but that's here. That's where the dinosaurs are coming out of the black hole here. This is 12 billion years and 7 billion years of growth here. We know this is 7 billion years of growth because we know the whole process takes 12 billion years. We've been told in the pyramid 4.8 billion years is how long it takes for the the full amount of the galaxy to come out this side of the black hole, that'd be this red arrow, 4.8 billion years. And if we know this is 12, we then can subtract 4.8 billion years from 7.2 billion years. Sorry, I'll take that back. We take 4.8 from 12, and we've got 7.2 remaining. So in other words, the distance of time through the black hole and then all the way back out here to the growth of a full galaxy, the remaining is 7.2 billion years. If we take 4.8 off the 7.2, well, roughly they're saying that the area here and movement through the black hole is taking roughly 2.4 billion years, and that probably is right. And I say that's probably right because we see these numbers of 12 and 24 and so on reflected in our date, our days and hours in a day, and so on. Not hours in a day, but you know what I'm getting at. No, we see these numbers reflected as 12 months in a year and 24 here, 2.4, 24 hours a day. We see the numbers reflected in our own cycle here. So what I'm saying to you, if we look at our rock and our image of it, albeit it's a river rock, I can tell you they are highly, highly technically, very, very technical to build, and they will be accurate too. They'll be as accurate as anything we've got on this planet. What is written on the river rocks has led me to many things, and it's had you boys out there find some nuclear weapons all over the globe, so you know what I'm telling you is true. So they go back now. The Neanderthal is that side of the black hole that the humans are on. So he's coming back here, 12 billion years. This is his trip back in time we're talking about here. These are reptilians going back in time to get the DNA of those that existed in these parts of the growth of galaxy where they did not. That's what they say. They had major growths taken place with the galaxy at its full size. So they've gone back 12 billion years here, approximately 3 billion years in here, they get to the Neanderthal man. But he's this side of the black hole, and it's a growth of the galaxy outwards again. They're probably staying in the same planets here. They're just going back in time on their own planets, in their own system. That's what is going down here. And the Neanderthal is existing here. He's between the 3rd and 7th period of time, but he's in this part of the galaxy's growth. I would expect long gone by the time the reptilians have evolved. The dinosaur you see coming out is coming out of this black hole here. This is where the dinosaurs have come out of this black hole. That we showed that. That's why we're being told they ride the wave. He's not an intelligent creature, yet he's there. So then we've got another 7 billion years going back this way, or we'll say 12 for the whole lot. So there's 24 billion years, but they know we go and get the humans. But they're the other side of the black hole. So there's our other black hole, and it's opening and closing. They go back here, another 12 billion years, and have to go back in here to get the humans. And all of us people that are on Earth now, we're here. This is where the problem happens. What happens? We come down and we hit that plane. The planet is spinning wrong way round. Our population growth is now threefold what it was, and that causes the problem. We actually, and I'm not into eugenics or euthanasia or whatever. I'm just merely saying that the message reads that that was a very big problem. And 3 times a year may seem like it's really restricting what we have at the moment, but this tilted Earth cycle of Earth now, well, most of us, or certainly all of us that are here now, were put back on this planet about 2,400 years ago. Look at what has happened to our population of 1.5 billion that was put here 2,000 years ago. We are now, albeit they're telling us it's 8 billion. I'll stick to the 7.9 because I would expect we've lost a few million over the last couple of years. But our Earth is we've only got 2,000 years to teach the lesson. And this whole lot is a lesson. The whole lot of it's a lesson. So therefore the 2,000 years we've been given the right and ability to breed all year round for the greater majority of us. And we've seen what's happened just in 2,000 years. resources become, imagine we're talking billions of years here, and that's why it was so difficult for me to grab that concept, that the time frame is so long. So what I'm saying here is they're actually going here, but the important fact is, from a human perspective, is they're picking all of us humans up here. All of us. It's not just white man and black man, it's Asians, you know, it's all of us. We're all getting picked up in this area here, but they've had to go back 36 billion years, 36 billion years plus a few more, roughly nearly 40 billion years ago, to get the humans that were here. And this is where we fail. This is where we come to an end. This is the part of our growth of the Philistose plate, is a recording of the galaxy's growth, or the man's, humans, within that portion of the galaxy. But it's talking about here. It's not over here, it's here. This is where we are. Now, to be here, and how do we get here? We're in the middle of the galaxy. To be at the middle, and having come from the outside, we had to be here as well. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's telling us that we could be back here, and if they've just told us their evolutionary path from a dinosaur has taken some 24 million years, they've got the problem they've got, because they evolved. Once again, we see another record here of humans' existence in the galaxy being an endless thing. You cannot be here. This is the only way to be here, is be here at the start. You have to be here at the start of time to be able to exist here. You cannot evolve as you're going out here and go back here. They've just told you what they've had to do to create a situation where the reptilians can move back in here. They've had to take the DNA of the Neanderthal in this fold here, all the humans here, and that now allows the reptilians to get all the way into here. It also allows us, although I would expect we probably will, although we do have the DNA growth, and you could say, yeah, well, why did we need to take the DNA growth? We had a recorded history long before this, but the point is when we hit this bottom plane, we were spinning in the right direction. We didn't have it spinning in the direction we've got, the one that caused the 3 births or 3 periods of time every year where we could have children. That is happening here for the very first time, and it is why we have to take on the Neanderthal DNA here, because we cannot exist beyond here in a system spinning in the opposite direction than how we evolved, or not evolved, but how we spent so long, and that's why. So that makes perfectly good sense as to why you have to take the DNA on in a galaxy cycling in the opposite direction just here, so that we can jump across this part of the galaxy when it's in the, not that the galaxy is cycling in the wrong direction, it's a system that's cycling in the wrong direction, so we can exist with where we are. This way it's more to do with systems going in one opposite direction than the other, that we are being made to be able to go and do that without any problems. Now, this birth rate we see, like I said, if there's anything that we're going to see, is telling us that the birth rates have increased 3-fold. I would expect that that's what we're seeing here. Without doubt, that though, I actually think this is the second version I put of this video up, because I hadn't quite understood. And it wasn't until I thought more about this inserted picture again, like I said, there are distinctly 2 black holes they're telling us about, not one. And it makes perfectly good sense that this would be what they did. So they've gone back a long way and obtained the DNA of these species so they could make the move here, and that we can exist in areas of space here. And I will show you one thing. If we go back and look at that picture. Now, if we come back to this image here, and like I said, this is our Neanderthal man here, his eyebrow here, his nose here, he's sticking his tongue out at these people. Above him is the number 3 and 7 right here. It's telling us that he was between the 3rd and 7th year, between the 3rd and 7th billionth year of the growth of the galaxy from this black hole where the dinosaurs came out. So maybe the dinosaurs got rid of this bloke here. Maybe he just passed out and died, whether he was a remnant of humans, you know, what went on over this side of the black hole, with the white modern humans being gotten rid of during the fourth, you know, between the 3rd and 4th billionth year of our growth, as we were riding, you know, in the growing galaxy. But certainly that is what we're seeing here. We see 3 to 7, and he's definitely that side of the black hole, whereas they're this side of this black hole here. So that's what they're telling us. I think at this present point, I've certainly done my work, and I've finished my course. It's the end of the 4th year. You might see on this side, I will try and bring this corner up and just see if it's brighter on this TV, that you can see in here an ape-man here as well, like a yeti. If I insert this image here, you see the monkey with the reptilian on the left side, the monkey right there. It's a very, very quick process. They had very little time to deal with this problem when it started to happen. So they went back in time. They may have been knowing it was going to happen, and there was probably no other way around the problem. So I just want you to be aware that that's the case. But to find all of that on that little rock, and like I said, the dinosaurs are very, very easy to see when you get to this point here. You can see them, the dinosaur shape here, another face of a dinosaur in here. But the humans over this side, all of us humans are this side of this black hole. So I would be absolutely certain what I've just told you was correct. But I think I'll finish up there today. That's all from Brian Whitten and ETR. I wish all of you a very, very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And let's get ready for what's about to roll out, because I'm absolutely certain I didn't get this lesson to waste my time, and I'm pretty sure they won't waste their time when the time comes. It will be done very quickly. Those on Earth that have had an opportunity to teach us the truth, which has obviously got something to do with what I'm doing here, if they do not want to teach it, they will go with those that have told us the untruths of human existence in the cosmos. That's all from me. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.